There is a topic on Weibo called, "How is the male god you liked during your student days doing now?" The replies from netizens are varied and colorful. He's married, his kid is already in kindergarten, and he's gained a lot of weight. Just an ordinary person now. Thinking back, I wonder what I was thinking. He's got a partner and is about to get married, but we have a meeting tonight. The train is almost at the station. As for Fong Sightsai's answer, he sets up a stall by the roadside, selling fried cold noodles. The night wind was gentle, carrying the sultry warmth of late summer. After completing the last kilometer of her daily exercise plan, Fong Kaikai began to slow down and walk towards home. There's an old saying that goes, single girls should avoid going out alone at night, or they might encounter some danger. Sure enough, as soon as Fong Kaikai turned a corner, she ran into a fried cold noodle stall. Torn between, I shouldn't eat or I'll waste the run, and eat, fried cold noodles smell too good, she firmly chose the latter after 3 seconds of hesitation. There were already a few people in line in front of the stall, all engrossed in their phones. After waiting for a long time, there was only one customer left in front of Fong Kaikai, and she finally squeezed to the front of the stall. The aroma of the fried cold noodles wafted into her nose, but suddenly, a voice above her said, "We're out of ingredients. The last portion has been sold." The voice was unexpectedly deep and pleasant. Fong Kaikai looked up sharply. "Why didn't you say so earlier? I've been waiting so long, you son of a..." Her curse abruptly stopped. In front of her was a serene face, very much like a moonbeam that had fallen into her sight many years ago. The dim streetlight enveloped the small fried cold noodle stall, softening his brows and eyes. Fong Kaikai stared blankly as he scooped up the last portion of fried cold noodles, packed it into a takeaway box, and handed it to the customer in front of her. He seemed unchanged, even pursing his lips as he handed over the fried cold noodles, just like the aloof and dazzling boy from back then. The customer in front of her left, but she stood there, dumbfounded. The man opposite her covered the box containing the ingredients, stared at her face, and calmly said, "I said, today's fried cold noodles are sold out." Fong Kaikai. Would you still like your former male god if he became a fried cold noodle vendor? Fong Kaikai swallowed hard, gently voicing the question. Her best friend, Su Xiaoran, was sitting across from her, her mouth full of cake, happily swinging her feet under the table. That depends on his looks. If he's fat, bald, and oily while selling fried cold noodles, then I'll just be an emotionless foodie. But if he's 1.85 meters tall, handsome, and showing off his 8-pack abs while selling fried cold noodles, then I'd be a girl who's always loved him deeply. I understand now. Su Xiaoran looked up. Understand what? Do you still like Yu Haoran? Fong Kaikai said expressionlessly, I understand that you are just a foodie. She appeared calm, but her heart was in turmoil. 1.85 meters tall, he had it. Good looks, he had those too. 8-pack abs, she hadn't seen those yet. Recalling the day she ran into Yu Haoran, she couldn't help but ask, why are you setting up a stall here? Yu Haoran packed his things and replied casually, personal interest, it's not my main job. A hobby? Who takes selling fried cold noodles as a hobby? Is his main job selling eggs? Fong Kaikai secretly complained but awkwardly smiled on the surface, waved goodbye, and fled. How could she not like him? He was the one who illuminated her teenage years. Even after many years, just standing in front of him, she could still clearly hear her own heartbeat. Fong Kaikai, known as the #1 sharpshooter at Bincheng High School, charged 100 yuan per 1,000 characters for original love letters. Her clients ranged from the most popular senior boys to the shy junior boys. 17-year-old Fong Kaikai was writing the nth version of this love letter. Helping others express their feelings was always easy for her, but when it came to herself, she spent half a semester and still couldn't finish the letter. She guessed it was because her feelings for Yu Haoran changed every day, so she couldn't capture all her emotions in words. Yu Haoran's seat was right in front of hers. The teacher was writing row after row of functions on the blackboard, and while Yu Haoran occasionally lowered his head to take notes, she stared at the back of his neck, lost in her thoughts. She was never shy, not even about liking someone. During the big cleaning day, Yu Haoran was grouped with a classmate named He-fan to mop the floor. She eagerly brought a bottle of Coke over, insisting on swapping partners with He-fan. He-fan teased her, "Fong Kai, you think a bottle of Coke is enough to trade for the chance to partner with our Yuga? That's not fair." Fong Kai smiled. "How about a bottle of Coke and a kick? Is that fair?" Known for her sharp tongue, Fong Kai never lost in verbal sparring. He-fan, seeing he couldn't win, reluctantly took the Coke and handed her the mop. Bending over to sweep the floor, Yu Haoran glanced at her and then looked away. "Yu Haoran, I'll move the chairs for you." Fong Kai lifted a chair with one hand and placed it upside down on the desk. "You can just clean the windows." Yu Haoran's tone was indifferent, not very appreciative. "Why? Don't you want me to move the chairs? Are you worried about me?" Fong Kai, clattering the chairs, teased him like a pea shooter. She thought she was being obvious enough, but he never seemed to appreciate it. No matter how enthusiastic she was, he never showed any interest. Yu Haoran, accustomed to her shameless tone, didn't even look up. "Do as you like." Hearing this, Fong Kai eagerly moved chairs, carried buckets, and ran around until she was sweating. When the big cleaning was over, she approached Yu Haoran again. "Tomorrow I'll bring you breakfast, a super delicious fried cold noodle. Will you eat it?" Yu Haoran removed his earphones and said, "No, thank you. I'm listening to English." "Oh, then don't thank me. No need to be so polite with me." Fong Kai tried to make small talk. She understood that the studious Yu was politely telling her to leave him alone. He-fan appeared out of nowhere, grabbing Fong Sai-Sai's sleeve. "How delicious is this super delicious fried cold noodle? If Yuga doesn't eat it, I will. Bring me one too." Fong Kai, annoyed, brushed off his hand as she walked away. "No, I'm not bringing you one. Fongga, just once." He-fan, playing the drama queen, begged pitifully. Fine, I'll bring it. Annoying thing, have some dignity. What's so great about fried cold noodles?" Yu Haoran, with his earphones on, watched them leave the classroom. His grip tightened, and he pressed the play button on his audio track. Fong Sai-Sai's love letter to Yu Haoran dragged on until October. The last sports meet of her high school career added a small spark to the monotonous life of the third year. Basketball, 100-meter dash, long jump, shot put. The sports committee member read out the events from the podium, and classmates eagerly raised their hands. The committee member checked off names on the list. Finally, the newly added event, girls' 110-meter hurdles, had no volunteers. High school girls, mostly concerned with beauty and decorum, naturally shied away from such a rugged event. The sports committee member, growing anxious, shouted from the podium, "Ladies, if no one signs up, our class will lose points in the overall score." "I'll do it." In the crucial moment, Fong Kai stepped forward. He-fan, 3 rows away, gave her a thumbs up. "Fongga, I respect you for being a real man." Fong Kai threw a water bottle at him from a distance. She was rummaging through her desk drawer for paper balls to throw at He-fan when she noticed Yu Haoran in the seat in front of her turning around. "Have you ever run a 110-meter hurdle before? It's something you need to practice." Hearing him show concern, Fong Kai was secretly delighted. "No, I haven't. I'll just practice." "Oh, then be careful. If you fall while running." Fong Kai, growing happier, said, Got it. I'll warm up and protect myself. You don't need to worry." Yu Haoran paused, then finished his sentence. "It will be embarrassing for our class." Fong Kai, with her strong mentality, wasn't defeated by such a cold remark. She said she would practice and did, training every evening after night study with some other classmates, as if fueled by adrenaline. Unexpectedly, not only could Yu Haoran predict math problems accurately, but he also foresaw her fall in the hurdles. On the day of the sports meet, Fong Kai fell at the 3rd hurdle, either from nerves or carelessness, right in front of Yu Haoran. But she reacted quickly, sprang up, and continued running. Unfortunately, she fell at the last hurdle too, scraping a large patch of skin off her palms and knees. No one thought she embarrassed the class. Instead, her classmates admired her strength, continuing to run after falling, a spirit that was truly commendable. Her classmates gathered around her, helping her to the infirmary. While applying ointment, she didn't utter a sound but glanced outside several times, not seeing the expected figure. Due to other ongoing events, her classmates left one by one after seeing she was okay. A girl next to her, watching the fun, teased, "Kai, you're really tough to pursue your male god, intentionally falling in front of the person you like. But Yu Haoren didn't even come to see you. That's too bad." Fong Kai, straightforward but not stupid, knew this was a mean-spirited joke disguised as banter. "Which eye of yours saw that I like him? Which I saw that I fell on purpose? Stop being sarcastic." The girl, not expecting such a sharp retort, felt embarrassed and left with her friend. As she walked out, she bumped into Yu Haoren holding a bottle of glucose, looking even more awkward. Yu Haoren had been standing at the infirmary door for a full 5 minutes. In the end, he didn't enter the infirmary, and the bottle of glucose was left alone on the windowsill. That afternoon, Yu Haoren had a 1,500-meter race. Fong Kai, limping, hopped to the field, eagerly offering water to Yu Haoren after his run. For some reason, Yu Haoren was colder than usual, saying a soft, "Thank you," before leaving without taking the water. Was Fong Kai frustrated? Yes. Did Fong Kai give up? No. When blinded by affection, people often overlook boundaries with forgiving eyes. She didn't care about disappointment or weigh gains and losses. All she had was boundless enthusiasm, recklessly charging in one direction. Even if she hit a wall, even if she was ignored, she would still press on with her determined spirit. In the end, Fong Kai placed the love letter she had delayed for half a semester into Yu Haoren's desk drawer. However, she did not leave her name on the letter. Fong Kai did not receive a reply from Yu Haoren, but was met with the furious outburst of her mother. In the office, Chen Yumei, in front of her class teacher, threw a stack of torn paper at her, her voice icy. "Fong Kai, do you still want to take the college entrance exam? You've really developed some nerve. While other students are studying hard every day, what about you? Which boy has you so bewitched that you're writing this kind of garbage?" Her mother's words pierced her heart like a knife carving through ice. She clenched her fists. "I wrote that for someone else. If you're worried that my writing will affect my studies, you can rest assured. My grades haven't dropped and my ranking hasn't slipped." "What do you mean your grades haven't dropped or your ranking hasn't slipped? You could do better, achieve higher scores." The woman, who bore a striking resemblance to her, raised her voice by 8 octaves. Fong Kai sneered, her volume not to be outdone. "What do you mean by doing better? No matter how hard I try or how well I do, you're never satisfied. You always say I could do better. You just have a habit of rejecting things you don't like. How can you talk to your mother like this? Isn't everything I do for your own good? Raising a daughter like this is truly my failure." Watching this tense mother-daughter confrontation, even the class teacher was at a loss. "You want me to get better grades, major in finance, which I don't like, and destroy the things I cherish, all while claiming it's for my own good. You don't want an outstanding daughter. You want a compliant one who satisfies your need for control." Fong Kai finished, gritting her teeth, and left without looking back, not returning to class even after evening study ended. She sat on the grass behind the library and cried her heart out. Perhaps crying too intently, she didn't even notice when someone joined her. This was also the first time Yu Haoren saw her cry. In his impression, Fong Kai had always been sharp-tongued, lively, strong, and resilient. No matter what she faced, her eyes always held light and enthusiasm, as if she would never be defeated or wronged. But today, when he went to the class teacher's office to fill out a competition registration form, he saw her hysterically arguing with her mother, then storming out, sitting on the ground and wailing. "Are you okay?" He squatted down, awkwardly patting her shoulder. The warmth from his touch on her shoulder made Fong Kai, with swollen eyes, look up to see Yu Haoren squatting in front of her, momentarily dazed. After a while, she muttered, "Did you hear everything?" Yu Haoran handed her a tissue and sat down next to her. Yes, I heard. Otherwise, he wouldn't have skipped evening study to follow her here. Fong Kaikai, there's not much time left until the college entrance exam. You really shouldn't be distracted by other things. His tone was as usual, calm and composed. You're always very smart. Auntie's tone was a bit harsh, but don't be mad at her and don't get distracted at this critical time. Even a fool could hear his rejection. Fong Kaikai felt the light that had shone for so long suddenly extinguish. He didn't understand that behind such arguments lay years of rifts and struggles between mother and daughter, her desperate desire to break free and escape from it all. And he stood on the other side, advising her not to be angry, not to get distracted by other things, completely denying her efforts and feelings. This isn't anger. Fong Kaikai, for the first and last time, spoke to him so coldly, you don't have to agree. But you don't need to come here just to deny me. You're not anyone to me. You have no right to say these things. She realized that it wasn't the light on him that had gone out, but the last bit of hope in her own eyes. This was Fong Saicai's sixth visit to Yu Haoran's grilled cold noodle stall. The grilled cold noodles were filled with her favorite pork floss and tenderloin. Fong Kaikai went all out, buying 2 servings at once, completely forgetting that she had gone out to run and lose weight. After buying the grilled cold noodles a few times, her conversations with Yu Haoran became more fluid. It turned out that selling grilled cold noodles was just his hobby. His main job was software development. When Fong Kaikai heard this, she choked a little. Then how are you so free? Aren't people in your field supposed to be working overtime every day, looking haggard, and sitting in front of a computer with bald heads? Yu Haoran glanced at her when he heard bald heads and casually opened a bottle of Sprite, handing it to her. I don't set up the stall every day. If I have to work overtime, I won't come. Fong Kaikai drank the Sprite, calming herself while thinking secretly. But every time she ran past here, she would see his grilled cold noodle stall, making her gain a few pounds. Do you live in Channing community? Yu Haoran suddenly asked. Huh? How do you know where I live? Fong Kaikai was momentarily stunned. His tone was calm. I also live in Channing community. I just moved there recently. I happened to see you when I was moving. The light from the street lamp fell on his forehead, making his hair look like an exquisite oil painting. Fong Kaikai held the bottle of Sprite, feeling the bubbles in her stomach rising, forming a sparkling galaxy in her mind. Let's go. I'm packing up now. We can walk back together. He pushed his cart ahead, and Fong Kaikai followed with mixed feelings. On the roadside, a group of elementary school students who had just finished their tutoring classes pointed at them and shouted, Mom, look. That couple selling grilled cold noodles looks so good. Yu Haoran glanced at him meaningfully, while the woman next to the child quickly covered the child's mouth. Following behind, Fong Kaikai felt even more conflicted. By the time they reached the entrance of their building, Fong Saicai's mind had completely shut down. Not only did Yu Haoran live in the same community, but he also lived in the apartment above hers. She watched in astonishment as Yu Haoran disassembled and folded his food cart, then effortlessly carried it up the stairs. As he reached the landing, he paused and turned. Fong Kaikai, good night. Fong Kaikai, having drunk too much Sprite, rudely replied with a burp. She seemed to catch a faint, fleeting smile on his lips. She recognized that expression. In school, when the teacher called him to solve problems on the blackboard, he would always calmly rise, walk to the podium, and fill the board with his work. Just when the teacher was about to start explaining, he would suddenly say, Teacher, I've thought of another solution. At that moment, Yu Haoran's lips would carry that same conspiratorial smile. Thinking of this, Fong Kaikai couldn't help but shiver. The temperature in October dropped drastically, and Fong Kaikai, hit by the cold snap, successfully caught a cold and stayed home for 4 days. With a head full of mush, Fong Kaikai snuggled under her blanket, sleeping soundly. She groggily heard someone knocking on the door. Struggling for a moment, she finally got up, slipping on her slippers to open the door. The man standing outside left her in shock. Chin Yen, did you follow the drama script all the way to my house? The bespectacled man flicked her forehead skillfully. Didn't you post on WeChat that you caught a bad cold? I came to see if you're still alive. Chen Yen, carrying a bag of cold medicine, pushed his way inside without waiting for an invitation. Rubbing her forehead and grumbling, Fong Kaikai closed the door, missing the fleeting figure on the staircase. Even though it was his first time at her place, Chen Yen didn't treat himself as a guest. He took off his shoes and walked straight to the kitchen, brewing a cup of medicine for her and washing a peach for himself. Fong Kaikai took the medicine, slowly saying, "That peach is quite expensive." Chen Yen adjusted his glasses and sneered, "I see you've been delaying your script for quite a while." Fong Kaikai immediately lowered her head like a turtle, silently drinking the medicine. "You, without friends to take care of you, fall ill and don't go to the hospital, just nesting at home alone." Halfway through his scolding, there was another knock at the door. "Did you order takeout?" Chen Yen casually opened the door. Yu Haoran stood at the door with a box of grilled cold noodles, his face cold. "Oh, thanks." Chen Yen took the cold noodles, holding the door and turning to scold. "Fong Kaikai, are you trying to ascend to heaven, ordering junk food while sick?" Fong Kaikai weakly protested, "You're the junk food." Yu Haoran's face seemed even more sour. Seeing this, Fong Kaikai quickly rushed forward and explained, "He's not a delivery guy. He's my neighbor and a high school classmate." She cautiously glanced at Yu Haoran and added, "This is our company's editor, Chen Yen. He's here for the manuscript." Yu Haoran's expression seemed to soften, and he proactively extended his hand to Chen Yen. "Hello, I'm Yu Haoran." Chen Yen adjusted his glasses, looking at the clear takeout box in his hand, understanding, "Oh, my apologies. I thought you were a delivery guy." After a few polite but insincere pleasantries between the two men, an awkward silence fell over the room. Fong Kaikai wished she could faint from a high fever right there and then. "So this is Yu Haoran." Chen Yen leaned close to her ear and whispered, "Isn't he the inspiration for the male lead in that commercial script?" His lips almost touched her ear, making the action seem undeniably intimate to an outsider. Yu Haoran's lips tightened as he coldly said, "Remember to eat after taking the medicine. I'll head back now. Don't say I didn't take care of you as a friend." As he left, Fong Kaikai clearly saw a sharp look in his eyes directed at Chen Yen. Could he be jealous? Fong Kaikai bit her nail, lost in thought. He was indeed jealous. When He Fan tugged on her sleeve, asking her to bring breakfast, Yu Haoran was only wearing his earphones without playing any audio. Watching the two of them bicker and leave the classroom, Yu Haoran pressed the play button, but not a single word registered. He remembered how Fong Kaikai looked throwing paper balls in class with He Fan, animated, and with eyes that seemed to hold a piece of bright sunshine. Classmates always gossiped. Fong Kaikai must like Yu Haoran. Otherwise, why would she always cling to him? But 17-year-old Yu Haoran was uncertain about this feeling. He had always been indifferent, only interested in math, with no close friends, and didn't know how to express pure affection. But this girl named Fong Kaikai seemed different from him. She seemed to get along well with everyone, always happy and warm when talking to anyone. The first time he noticed Fong Kaikai was before a morning self-study session. 15 minutes before the bell rang, he entered the classroom through the back door, and only a few students were scattered around. Fong Kaikai was sitting in his seat, looking around suspiciously, then carefully pulling out a portion of grilled cold noodles from her bag. It was the first time he saw someone eating street food with such relish. She didn't even notice when he walked up to her. He had to clear his throat to remind her that it was his seat. Fong Kaikai looked startled, shoving the grilled cold noodles into her mouth and turning red from choking. She finally managed to swallow most of the food. "You scared me. I thought it was the class teacher. Why did you scare me like that?" Yu Haoran raised an eyebrow. "You can't eat in the classroom. And you're sitting in my seat." She paused, holding her bag and smiling sheepishly. "Oh, I sat in the wrong seat. Please don't tell the teacher, and I'll bring you some tomorrow too." She clasped her hands in a pleading gesture, looking like a clumsy hamster. I won't tell the teacher." He never intended to tattle. Since then, she always found excuses to be around him, traded her turn for duty with classmates using cola, and talked incessantly. Yu Haoran thought that, besides his family, he might have talked the most with Fong Kaikai in his life. During the sports meet, she volunteered for the 110-meter hurdles. He knew hurdling easily caused falls, and though he was worried, he said, "If you fall while running, it'll be embarrassing for our class." He thought she would reconsider after hearing this, but she seemed more determined and practiced on the field every day after school. After evening self-study, he always pushed his bike, walking slowly on purpose. Because this way, he could see Fong Kaikai bouncing around on the field, her bangs blown up by the wind, looking like a funny horn. During the sports meet, Fong Kaikai did fall. He rushed over, only to hear her briskly tell a taunting classmate, "Which eye of yours saw that I like him?" He stopped in his tracks. Fong Kaikai was not a math problem, nor a definitive algorithm, so she always made him feel uncertain and at a loss. A few days later, he received an anonymous love letter. The handwriting on the letter was free and easy. He knew at first glance it was from Fong Kaikai, but he wasn't sure if the feelings were truly from her. Otherwise, why wouldn't she leave her name? Fong Kaikai, known as the top love letter writer at Bincheng High School, even he, who was not keen on school gossip, had heard of her. At the most crucial moment in his life, he didn't know if he had fallen for Fong Kaikai, but when he saw her writing torn and her tears falling, he felt sad. When comforting Fong Kaikai, he even harbored a selfish hope that she wouldn't like anyone else, that she wouldn't convey those words to him on behalf of someone else. But he never imagined that would be the last conversation he had with Fong Kaikai. After recovering from her illness, Fong Kaikai resumed her jogging routine, but Yu Haoran's grilled cold noodle stall had been absent for 5 consecutive days. Having recovered from her cold, she wanted to thank him in person and return the washed lunchbox, but knocking on his door several times yielded no response. When washing the lunchbox, Fong Kaikai had fished out a slip of paper from the bag, which bore a string of numbers and 4 terse characters. "Add me on WeChat." Seeing the slip, Fong Kaikai briefly wondered if Yu Haoran still delivered grilled cold noodles. After much tossing and turning, Fong Kaikai finally mustered the courage to add the WeChat contact on the slip. The friend request was accepted almost instantly. Fong Kaikai stared at the screen for 3 seconds, then typed, "Did you move?" Yu Haoran's reply was swift, "No." After a 5-minute pause, Fong Kaikai typed another line, "I wanted to return your lunchbox, but you weren't home when I knocked. 0_0 inch." Yu Haoran replied, "Are you very free now?" Fong Kaikai sensed a hint of hostility in his tone but still replied, "Pretty free." This time, Yu Haoran sent a location within the neighborhood, asking her to meet him there. Perhaps it was because Fong Kaikai had looked up the lunchbox brand on Taobao and knew its hefty price, or maybe because she was indeed very bored, she impulsively decided to bring the 2 lunchboxes to the address Yu Haoran had sent. Yu Haoran's first words when he opened the door were, "My parents went abroad for a trip. No one's home. Make yourself comfortable." Parents? You're home? Fong Kaikai's mind was filled with question marks. As she took off her shoes and entered, Fong Kaikai marveled at the luxurious setting, realizing that Yu Haoran's family owned such a spacious apartment in the city while he rented an apartment elsewhere. "Are you not living in Channing community anymore?" Fong Kaikai asked awkwardly as she sat stiffly on the sofa. Yu Haoran placed a glass of juice in front of her. "Who said that?" "I just came back to sort out some things. After this, I'll continue living in your building." Fong Kaikai's ears turned red at his words, wondering why they sounded so ambiguous, even though they merely lived in the same community and building, not cohabiting. Her gaze wandered nervously until it landed on a stack of letters on the bookshelf, the topmost envelope strikingly familiar. Why did it seem familiar? Because it was from her favorite English magazine in high school, and she had even folded it into a love letter envelope. Following her gaze, Yu Haoran asked, "What are you looking at?" Those are love letters I received in high school. My mom said you shouldn't waste someone's feelings, so even if you don't respond, you shouldn't throw them away. So, she kept them for me." Yu Haoran spoke casually. "Oh, Auntie is really thoughtful. Fong Kaikai felt sweat gathering in her palms from guilt. Why thoughtful? Yu Haoran leaned down sometime during their conversation, his voice dropping near her ear. She froze, not daring to turn her head, but she could feel his breath drawing closer. Suddenly, a ringtone shattered the growing tension. Fong Kaikai hurriedly answered, and Chen Yan's loud voice came through. Fong Kaikai, emergency. Yushan Road, Blue Bay Bar, hurry. Hearing the familiar distress call, Fong Kaikai sprang up from the sofa. Watching her hurried movements, Yu Haoran's tone turned somewhat rigid. Is it your editor? Why is he calling you to a bar? While tying her shoes, Fong Kaikai replied, yeah, it's Chen Yan's usual trick. Hee. Every time I pretend to be his spouse and drag him out by the ears so he doesn't have to drink. Yu Haoran frowned slightly but merely said softly, I see. Be careful on the way. With those words, she heard a bang as the door closed. Maybe the door was shut too quickly, but Fong Kaikai had a feeling she was being driven out. Since Fong Kaikai was kicked out after answering the emergency call, Yu Haoran had disappeared again for 3 days. Fong Kaikai sent him a few casual messages on WeChat, asking if he had eaten, if he had set up his stall, if the price of eggs had increased, and so on, but he didn't reply to any of them. It was as if Yu Haoran had vanished into thin air. Fong Kaikai recalled the last exam of the college entrance examinations. After handing in her paper, she rushed out immediately, circled around to Yu Haoran's exam room, hoping to catch one last glimpse of him. But his seat was empty. He had already left. Familiar classmates in the exam room told her that Yu Haoran had handed in his paper 15 minutes early and left a long time ago. Standing outside the exam room, Fong Kaikai was dazed for a long time. Had her secret crush ended just like that? Later, he mysteriously reappeared, then left again, as if God, being too bored, was playing a joke on her. Feeling down, Fong Kaikai was drinking in a small bar near her company. The screen of her laptop glowed dimly in front of her, the script outline half-written, half the screen covered with Yu Haoran. With a loud smack, the laptop was closed by someone, startling Fong Kaikai. She glared at the person who had suddenly appeared. Chen Yan, what's wrong with you? I haven't saved it. Here's your... Chen Yan placed a sweet wine in front of her and sat down beside her unceremoniously. Don't worry, it will autosave. Besides, with your current state, who knows what garbage you've written? If it's gone, so be it. Fong Kaikai thought of the half-screen filled with Yu Haoran and felt her cheeks burn. Angrily, she grabbed Chen Yan by the neck. Who are you calling garbage? I'm garbage. Now let go. Chen Yan pried her hands off. Let me guess, you're so down because of that neighbor? The sweet aroma of the wine trickled down her throat, and a fleeting sadness crossed Fong Kaikai's eyes. Chen Yan, keenly aware of her mood, reached out and ruffled her hair. Fong Kaikai, relationships between people are about fate. His hand slid down, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. Why be so upset over someone who's so elusive? Fong Kaikai, it's been many years since you liked him. Why not consider the people around you now? Fong Kaikai looked up, seeing the rare seriousness in Chen Yan's tone. Yes, it had been many years since she liked him, but when he appeared in front of her again, all the memories came rushing back, repeatedly reminding her, falling for Yu Haoran was destined, reuniting with him was destined, and falling for him again was destined. Even if it's not meant to be, the person I like seems to always be him. Her elongated tone still carried a hint of firmness. Fong Kaikai was a terrible drinker, and in the end, it was Chen Yan who carried her into a car and took her back to her building. Chen Yan got out of the car and opened the passenger door, ready to help her out. Fong Kaikai, since we're already here, let me take you upstairs. Fong Kaikai opened her eyes and stared at him for a moment without speaking. Chen Yan sighed. You already rejected me once. Surely you won't reject my help to take you upstairs. No need. She's already rejected. Yu Haoran, holding a can of Sprite, leaned against the staircase. Hearing his voice, Fong Kaikai's eyes lit up. She wobbled out of the car. Yu Haoran? You're back? What are you doing downstairs? Throwing out the trash. Fong Kaikai squinted at him. You're lying. You don't have any trash in your hand. Yu Haoran remained silent. Chaniyan chuckled. Yeah, where's the trash? Invisible. Yu Haoran suddenly opened the Sprite can and chugged it down, then smiled innocently, crushing the can with one hand. Now there's trash. The night was devoid of insect chirps or wind, the silence becoming somewhat awkward. Suddenly, Fong Kaikai burst out laughing. Chaniyan, look. The guy I like is so cool. He can crush a can with one hand. Chaniyan's expression turned complicated, and his grip on her arm loosened. Fong Kaikai felt the alcohol in her stomach spinning like her head. She didn't know when Chaniyan's car had left or when she ended up hanging onto Yu Haoran. Yu Haoran carried her to her door. Fong Kaikai, we're home. Get down. He frowned, but his voice was gentle. I'm not getting down. Fong Kaikai clung to him like a koala, refusing to budge. Yu Haoran's frown deepened. He recalled how Chaniyan casually walked around her home in slippers, speaking to her intimately. When she posted about being sick, that man came rushing to her, while he knew nothing. His grip on her waist tightened unconsciously, and he said, Fong Kaikai, you just said I'm the one you like. But I wasn't even on your friends list. Fong Kaikai lifted her face from his neck, looking at the face she had admired for so many years, her first love in her youthful days. She smiled bitterly. Yes, I do like you. I've liked you since high school, always finding chances to talk to you, to do chores with you. Just one word from you would make me happy for a long time. Everyone mocked me for chasing after you, trying to get your attention. But you were the only one who didn't know. I even wrote you a love letter, working on it for so long. It was the longest letter I ever wrote. But you told me not to get distracted by other things. Even you looked down on me. Even though I said harsh things to you, at graduation, I rushed out after finishing my exam to find you. Were you avoiding me because you knew I was coming? The face in front of her suddenly came closer, his cool lips sealing all her unsaid words. She was pressed against the door, her teeth against his, leaving no room to breathe. In the gentle intimacy, she tasted a hint of sweetness, like Sprite, or perhaps a starry galaxy. Fong Kaikai, listen to me. His hoarse voice whispered in her ear. I never looked down on you, and I never avoided you. I handed in my paper early to find you. I moved here because of you. I set up my stall on your running route because of you. You didn't reply to me for years. I've only ignored you for 3 days. Isn't that more unfair? Fong Kaikai's mind stopped functioning, stuttering out a question. Why? Yu Haoran's lips brushed against her burning ear, whispering slowly, after graduation, your QQ status never changed. Until the moment she lost consciousness, Fong Kaikai couldn't understand how Yu Haoran liking her related to her QQ status. When Fong Kaikai woke up the next morning, her head felt as if it were filled with lead. Struggling to open her eyes, she was greeted by the bright, slightly glaring morning light. Through her hazy vision, she saw a pair of relaxed brows, a refined nose, tightly pressed lips, and a toned abdomen. A thunderclap seemed to explode in her mind as she sprang up from someone's embrace. An innocent gaze met hers, and the person spoke with calmness. You drank too much, threw up on me, so I had to use your bathroom to clean up and take care of you. And then what? Fong Kaikai asked nervously. And then you clung to me and wouldn't let me go, and I couldn't break free from you. The tone was as innocent as could be, and Fong Kaikai's heart was a mix of guilt and shock. She didn't even dare look Yu Haoran in the eye. Yu Haoran spoke with a hint of helplessness. Given the situation, you need to take responsibility, okay? Fong Kaikai felt a surge of joy in her heart and nodded with her face covered, completely missing the sly smile on Yu Haoran's face. After all, she couldn't remember being the one who clung tightly, being kissed into a daze, or being the one he couldn't break free from. The only thing she remembered was Yu Haoran's heartfelt confession and something about her QQ status. Fong Kaikai got out of bed, pulled out her computer, and logged into QQ for the first time in ages. Amidst the beeping notification sounds, she saw her last updated status from graduation year. In terms of my favorite things in the world, if skewered cold noodles are second, only you can be first.